But I don't know if it became clear a little bit in the Nekuda that he's saying till now. The Nekuda is like this in the Maimer of Hayelach, so he brought that there's a Shakatar in the Mekubalim and Get Ein Sof, and the Shaila is mitzad the Indian of Leishanisi, because this Habas is Bekeich Ein Sof, and this Habas Bekeich Ein Sof means Bekeich Atzmus. So the Shaila is, how is so that's the Chorin of Shini to say that this Habas is directly. The Musik of Leishanisi is that in this Habas is Be'in Arech. There's no this Habas is Koloch Shiv Mamish the Gabi Etzim. Le'idach we're saying that this Habas is Bekeich Ein Sof. And if you're saying that in this Habas there's an expression of Ein Sof, or in order to have such a Habas as Dafke Bekeich Ein Sof, that means that there's you cannot say the Shleimus Havana, that the Welt has no Mitzias at all, the Gabi Lekos, you can't say this Habas is directly from Atzmus. That's the Nekuda that it says. The Torah is according to the Alter, this Habas is the Eir. And the Eir is Ein Sof. So, in order to explain that, he brings the whole Arichas from the Negeh to Eir, the difference between Eir and Shefa. And the maskana is that if shefa is that the inyan is mitztayir according to the tzor of the hashpa, and then if we're dealing with an we're dealing with a kayach, which is nyani is to be mitztayir the tzir of hashpa and elamis, so that's in of gvul. That's the fiarach elamis. That's what we married before. That in shefa is only shaychs when they get to the likia mitzumtzum, which is mislabish, and the fiarach abriya. Eir is mein amar. Eir is not the way the Indian is misamsim, the fi'er of the Mikabel, but Eir is that the etzim commercial who is mispashit. The etzim is Meir. So on one hand the Eir is a audible vat because it's not a muhuz dvarma from the etzim. Le'idach it's Eir mein amar. That's what he brings. So the beginning of Kimchi he says that klal is b'chinas Eir zeh b'chinas Eir kol b'atzmuseh. The end of the Chukkas, this Chukkas says, according to the Havana of Eir, we understand how they read this, how this how is not getting any shini. Why? Because Eir is in. Why is the Eir in? Because the Eir is Mein Amar. So since Eir, the homohos of Eir is the Gili Amar, so therefore the Eir is Ein Sof. Punkas the Mar is Ein Sof, and the Eir is not a separate mitzvah. The Eir is the Mar is being Nizgala. So Mela the Eir is Ein Sof too. And then it get and Mela this house is Be'er. It's the house that the Eir. Mela mitzad echad the Eir is Mein Amar. It's not independently Ein Sof. It's the Ein Sof of the Eir is not because Gili inherently is Ein Sof, but because the Gili is not a separate mitzvah, it's the Spashas Amar, it's Dovok to the Mar. Le'idach, this house is audible that. Because the Eir also, the Eir mitzad echad is only audible that. It's not the Etzim is not mitzvah in the Tzir of Gili. Yeah, the way is married the Marshal of Eir. So when he says, Kol is b'chinas Eir, b'chinas Eir, Kol b'atzmos, he means that this Eir, which is Ein Sof, this Eir, which is Ein Sof, which is V'yicholti Lahavis, their Eir was to get Sof Maimer Vayelech. So their Eir is not is Dafke Eir HaKol B'atzmuseh. That's what he wants to bring out. The Eir, the way it is L'achrat, so it's already a Metzias of Eir, and of Gilui. That Eir is not Amitas Advekos, and it doesn't contain within itself the Ein Sof of the Mar. Which Eir? It's trying to say that this Eir is Ein Sof, and it has within itself the Keich HaEtzim of Ein Sof of Shlos Kol HaTeirim to be Mahaved the Keich Ein Sof. That's Dafke the Eir HaKol B'atzmuseh. Why Dafke this? It doesn't say that B'chinas Eir Zeh Hu Gam Kein Kol B'atzmuseh. Like regular, every Eir is also Kol B'atzmuseh. He says, Hine Klol is B'chinas Eir Zeh B'chinas Eir Kol B'atzmuseh. The Shal is what's the Avana? So this, I'm saying this is the Nekudas Advarim is, and that is Meir Chol HaRichas over here, until Omer Madan Sarach Lohavin. But the Nekudas Advarim is that Ve'etzin is a certain Shverigkeit. Certain Shverigkeit. We speak about Lamata, when we speak of the Musik of Eir, of Gilui, and Etzim Lamata, or the Mashal Eir HaNefesh, the Mashal of Eir HaShemesh. So, the Eir only expresses that element in the Mar, which is Mesugal to be Nizgala. The Inyanim which are Shayach to Gilui. The Inyanim which are beyond Gilui, they're not expressed in Eir. Say, there's a Musik of light, of Behirus, let's say. The Musik of Behirus is able to be Nizgala, could be experienced. So that Inyan is there's Galus of Eir. Eir is that it's not in of Shefa, that it's the Inyan Kamesh who being Mizgala. But what's being Nizgala? Behirus, let's say. It's possible to be Nizgala, we can Smargazain. It's the Inyan which is Shaychas to Gilui. Masha'inkin here, we're speaking about the Inyan of Keich Ein Sof. We speak of Mashal when they get to the Keich Ein Sof, he's speaking when they get that his house is Keich Ein Sof Shlas Kol HaTeirim. That's the Inyan which is higher than Geder Gilui. That's a whole different type of Inyan. If we're dealing with the Eretz Megala, that aspect in the Meir, which the fact that the Meir has the ability to be Nisgala, that aspect is Nisgala there. The mustic of light could be in a etzem way, and it could be Nisgala. It could be experienced. It could be mispashet. But here, when you're dealing with Eretz being Megala in which is be'etzem higher than Gilu. So even the fact they're saying bleak vol, the idea of Ein Seif, only Atzmos is Ein Seif. And any Gilei, any Indian of his Galus, Gilei by definition is not Ein Seif. Because any Indian outside of Atzmos is not Ein Seif. Nothing has to, Gilei doesn't have to be. Nothing has to be. So the Etzem, the Metzias of Gilei, you say, is not a Keli for Ein Seif. It's not a Keli for bleak vol. You understand what I'm saying? In the Mashal, we don't have such an Indian that we'll speak about the second Indian. He speaks about the Indian of Keach Ein Sof, the fact that Asma Shlas Kol HaTeirim. Shlas Kol HaTeirim is an Indian that's higher than the whole Musik of Gilui. It's nothing to do with the Musik of Gilui. It's the Eivish beyond any Musik of Gilui. Gilui is that there's an Indian of Blikvol. There's a certain mile in being Nizgala. And you say that the Etzem contains that mile being Nizgala. The Indian of Shlas Kol HaTeirim, let's say. That's not in of Gili. There is no musagim, not a musag of Gili either. So how could the which the in Yani is to express that element to the Mar, his ability to be Nizgale, how could it express these in Yanim of the Mar, which have nothing to do with Gili altogether? And in order for the to have, in order for this havas to be idea it's not only that through reflects the Inin Hagili which exists in Elikos. If the would only reflect the fact that the Eivishter is Kelo the Mail of his Galus, giving his Gala, so then only in Yanim which Hashayach the Gili would be in his Gala in not in Yanim which has nothing to do with Gili. We're speaking in the matter before that the Alter says the is Keich Ein Sof and Tzusim Atzmusay, and that the has the thing that the Keich of Shlas Kol HaTeirim, that's in Yanim which are but have nothing to do with the Inin of Gili. Shlas Kol HaTeirim has nothing to do with his Galus. Shlas Kol HaTeirim is the Eivishter beyond being connected to definitions. No inyanim at all. No miles. No musag. You versteht die Scheile? That's what is in other words, where does stem from? Stems from the fact that the Moir has the ability to be Nizgala. So that's that Indian, the is Megala. The aspect of the Makir being able to be Nizgala, that's Nizgala in there. But that aspect in the Moira which has nothing to do with Gilu, that's not Nizgala in there?
That's the only Makir of his house.
Huh?
That's Makir of his house.
What is this Makir of his house? The way he wants to be Masber here, that this Havas is B'Keich Ein Sof Shlos Kol HaTeirim. That what does that have to do with Gilu?
That's you saying that?
Yeah. I'm saying even the first Musik of Blik Vol, Ein Sof Lis Pashtusay, but that Inin HaGili Mitzat Atzmi is Mugbal. But here we're saying the Gilui is not Stam Gilui. In Yani is to bring out the Eibusher's Ein Sof. His Espashtus, his Blikvol. We can understand that's Inyan. Stems from the fact that the Eibusher is Blikvol. And that he's Ein Sof L'Spashtusi. So the Eibusher is Ein Sof L'Spashtusi, that's Nizgala. Why isn't Nizgala? Because that's in Yani of to bring out the Eibusher's Ein Sof. But shaking the Shilas Kol HaTeirim, the has nothing to do with that Inyan.
We didn't answer that in the previous moment.
The Maimon doesn't ask that. So I'm saying the fact that the Rebbe Rashab brings here in the Maimon beginning of Kimcha, as it's called, it's to explain that the that we're saying that has the Amitas Ein Sof, that's Me'in Amar, and therefore B'Yichot Havis is which P'chinas the Kol Batz Musar. That's what he's being masber here, which is a whole different chiddush. He says Kol Batz Musar. So he goes Midarga Ladarga. He says that, and for the true Havan of Kol Batz Musar, it's not enough. We have no mashalim for it. Not the Nefesh, not Shemesh. What is the Rebbe supposed to say? Lepoil. He says, by Shemesh, the Moed is Muchrach Lahar. So what does it mean the is Muchrach Lahar? That means that the is not Neveh from the Etzem altogether. It's not that the Shemesh, it's not Neveh mitzat the Etzem Hus HaShemesh. The Shemesh doesn't have the ability to be Meir. The Eibusher, it's like the Eibusher created the Shemesh and he inserted in the Shemesh an ability to be Meir. It doesn't belong to the Shemesh L'chatchila. So there's two separate inyanim. There's the Etzem HaShemesh, and then there's the fact that the Shemesh has the ability to be Meir. So it wasn't the inyan. So that's, if we're going to say that in the Nimshal, there's two separate inyanim. There's the Etzem of Elikus, and there's the fact that the Eibusher contains the ability to be Meir, to be Mispashit. So what would be, if that would be the Avon of it? So would be so would be mukbal. Wouldn't be in itself altogether, because it's a prat kaviyochan alakus. What is ein litchila? The etzem is ein litchila, but that aspect that you think he's talking about a specific aspect, the aspect that he's able to be mispashit. That's an prat in alakus. He's able to be mispashit. Wouldn't say that the eir is ein safe. It's a pratistic in alakus. So what's the mashma when you get to eir nefesh? We say a different about. What do you say about eir nefesh? That the fact that the nefesh is meir b'rtzaini. What does it mean the nefesh is meir b'rtzaini? If the nefesh wants, Masad Echad, we're saying that in order for the nefesh to be mechai the guf, to be mispashet and nirgash in a body, it doesn't have to be mitzamtzim himself. It doesn't. It's b'derech hamela. It doesn't have to be torut in order to lower chayis down in a way that should be chashayach to the guf. So b'derech hamela, the nefesh is an etzem, and b'derech hamela is begili also, the avan of eir. If he wants, so we're saying it's b'derech hamela, but if he wants, if it's against Ritzeni, he won't be meir there. If it's heipach teva se'etzem to be meir, or it's not masim kavana se'etzem to be meir, mashal b'gufa behema, the nefesh is megolo b'gufa behema, and there it's not going to be nirgash chayis b'gufa behema. Why? Because if it's not l'shleimus hanefesh to be meir in that makim, it's not going to be meir there. What's the havana? The havana is the fact that the nefesh is able to be meir is because the nefesh take its muhus is not mugbo. The ability to be meir belongs to the etzem. Chayis, or the nefesh, doesn't only contain chayis. In an atzmistic way, it also has has chayis, not in a limited way. What does it express? It's not in a limited way. It can also be mispashab derech hamela. But it's because the nefesh has chayis in an unlimited way. The nefesh is unlimited. Masha'enkin but it's not forced to be in that. It's not that the nefesh contains hispashtus. It's not that the nefesh, to begin with, chayis is in two forms. Chayis is in a way of etzem, and chayis is in a way of hispashtus. Chayis is the nefesh. The nefesh is not mugbal. So if the nefesh is not mugbal, it doesn't have any limitations. So if it's behesem l'ratzna nefesh, he could automatically be begili also. But if it's not masam with his muhus, so then it's not shaykh to say that there's a spashtus against his muhus. The whole spashtus is because the nefesh is not mugbal. Yeah, we spoke about this last time. But even after you say that, the shaila is there is two separate things. There's the nefesh itself, the etzem nefesh, whatever the nefesh is, and then there's the fact that the nefesh is bligvul. It's not in vaz b'shteit der nefesh that the nefesh is bligvul. There's the nefesh, whatever the muhus nefesh is, and there's the etzem muhus nefesh, not the fact that it's unlimited, that it's mispashit, that it's unlimited. There's the etzem muhus nefesh, and then this etzem, as a result of the fact that this etzem is not a mugbal, he could also be mispashit. But his pashtus is always, there's two forms of something existing. There's something existing in a form of etzem, and there's something existing in a form of his pashtus. That Indian you have in the nefesh also. Two different forms of being. You have being in an etzemdik way, which is higher than being nirgash, let's say, higher than being felt and experienced the pearl. And then there's something which also exists in a mode of being felt. So because the nefesh is not limited, so therefore, its muhos doesn't only exist in an etzemdik way; it also exists in a spashasdik way. But the etzem himself, at the end of the day, we're saying there's two separate things. What do we say? What do we mean when we say the etzem can be mispashit? That the etzem could also be in a form of hispashtus. That's what we're saying. It's not limited; therefore, it could also be in a mode of hispashtus. But where does this hispashtus begin? But where does the idea of hispashtus begin? That the idea comes in a form of hispashtus. In the Nimshal, he's saying something else. The Nimshal is saying there's something called the etzem is yachal lahor. That means in the Nimshal we're saying, what am I trying to bring up? We're saying the nefesh. At the end of the day, the whole musig of hispashtus and gilui only begins in that aspect of the etzem which has a shaykhis to gilui. But the etzem is mufshit from gilui. That's takanam hispashtus. That's takanam hisgalu. In the Nimshal was saying something. The Nimshal was saying that the etzem is yachal lahor. The Hachodesh lahor is not that the etzem could, to begin with, the etzem is not mukbal to be an etzem. He could also be a mispashit. There's no two modes to begin with. Lamata, there is two modes of being. There's a mode of being in a form of etzem. There's a mode of being in a mode of gilui. We're saying that the nefesh is not mukbal, so he could be in both. He could also be mispashit. He's also able to be mispashit. We're not saying that the etzem is not mugbo, therefore he could also be in his pashas. The etzem gufa is not mugbo. You understand the meaning? The etzem alone is not mugbo being a form of etzem. The etzem gufa yachal. You understand the word that he's saying? So he wants to come out with it that the Lamaila, the musik of his pashtus, begins even before the mocker has a shaykhis his pashtus. The etzem is beyond his pashtus. There, he's not mugbal to dafka in a form of etzem.
It's not two separate forms.
Yeah.
B'meila.
So b'meila, even in where the etzem is legamri mufshit from gilui, he's not mugbal to be dafka. I'm saying is if you say that the etzem, there's a sort of etzem, so why is there gilui? Why is there gilui? Because there's an Indian in gilui. You have to find the Indian for it, or because Ili is going to express a certain blig vol. There's a certain Indian in gilui. Mash'egin in the Lekos, the Eibush is taka blig vol. The etzem is not mugbal, so he could be mispashet. The etzem chatchil is not mugbal.
What's the real nafkamina?
Huh?
What's the real nafkamina? What's the word?
No, what I'm saying is, therefore, the could also the etzem mamish. The etzem mamish is misgala, is mispashet. It's not just the Indian agili doesn't begin. Doesn't only begin from that aspect in the makir, which has a shaykhis dispashtus. In the mashal, we speak about in the mashal, the etzem himself is beyond dispashtus. The etzem is a certain mode of being, which is not gili, not dispashtus. Where does the musik of gili come in? Gili expresses a certain mile of digvol. So for the sake of that mile, the etzem doesn't only contain the Indian etzem, it also contains the Indian agili. But gili is another mode of being, which the reason why the makir contains it is because there's a mile in gili. If there would be no mile in gili at all, the etzem wouldn't contain it. Why would the etzem contain it? Because the etzem is a specific Indian. It's not atzmis away. The fact that he also contains, there's a mile in gili. What's the mile in gili? That it brings out a certain shleimus in the etzem. But if there wouldn't have been a mile in gili, means if gili would be no Indian at all, then the etzem taka wouldn't contain it, because the etzem is limited at the end of the day. So since the etzem is limited, it only contains or expresses himself in things which that Indian is an Indian taka. So gili is an Indian. Where is gili an Indian? Only legabe those in Yanim that legabe them gili is an Indian. But legabe those in Yanim, the gili is not an Indian. There taka gili doesn't exist. You say is in the shemesh. So where do you see the Indian shemesh is b'chal muchach l'hayr? But in anything, where do you just bring out the mashal of the shemesh? Where do you have the Indian gili in the shemesh? What's mispashet? The light is mispashet. Behirus is mispashet. Because the gabi the Indian of behirus, the fact that it's mispashet is a ma'ila. I say when you get the chayis nefesh, chayis is not only in the atzmistic way, it's also mispashet. Why is chayis also mispashet? Because the gabi chayis being mispashet is a ma'ila. Being mispashet is an Indian. But let's say there's certain yanim in the nefesh that they're personal yanim. His pashas is not a ma'ila gabi them. I have to think of a dugma. But the fact, basically the dugma gabi shemesh, that the fact that the shemesh says shira, that Indian is not mispashet by it. The gabi saying shira to the Eibishter, his pasha is not a ma'ila. What does his pasha have to do with anything? Saying the shemesh is a ma'ila. It says shir v'shvach like Hachodesh Baruch Hu. What would be the ma'ila? The gabi saying shir v'shvach like Hachodesh Baruch Hu, that it's mispashet in the world that it says shvach. How would that be a ma'ila in shvach? If you have an Indian of behirus, of light, so the gabi light, it would be a chisarn in light if it's not mispashet b'chol makom. What brings out its bleak vol. Mashiach, the shemesh recognizes the Eibishter and it gives shira to Hashem. He's saying, if it would be mispashet, there wouldn't be a mile in that Indian. As far as mile is, what type of mile would it be for the shemesh shir shvach to be heard in the whole world? It wouldn't be a mile for the Indian. Maybe it'd be nice for us to know about it, but it wouldn't bring out the taika for the Indian. So taika the Indian of Gili is not an Indian there, so taika doesn't exist. Because in the mashal, the fact any Indian where you say that the etzem contains within himself the ability for Gili and etzem are two separate inyanim. There's a mode being in a personal atzmizdika mode, and there's something being in a way that's say it's demonstrated, is bizgalus. Why does the etzem have the Indian of that its Indian is also mispashet? Because his pashta is the quality. It's an Indian. And if he's not lacking any qualities, he contains him there chamela. If this makar is a makar built in mugbal, he's a makar shalim, so he has within himself all the qualities. But why does he contain the quality of Gili? Because Gili is an Indian. Mashenkel and Maila, the Eibishter is legabe him, there's no Mailas. Gili is not an Indian at all. Why does he contain gili? Because he's not mugbal taken. Because the Eibush is taken not mugbal. Not because gili is an Indian. So the Eibush is not mugbal. Lechatchila the etzem is not a etzem. There's not mugbal to be dafkan a tzir of etzem. He's a mitzvah blikvul. So that he's kela the Indian of air not because he contains, not because this Indian is a ma'ila legabim. Because the Eibush is taken mitzvah blikvul.
Therefore, because he's blikvul, therefore we're.
So therefore, the Indian hagilui is not only where gili is a ma'ila. The Indian hagilui is because the etzem is not mugbal.
That's the gabi nefesh.
Because the etzem is not mugbal b'chlal. The Eibush is not mugbal, and then nothing's mugbal.
It's not like the nefesh. It's not Mina Etzem.
It's not the ultimate way it is Lamaila Ermeina Etzem. It's Ermeina Etzem. It's Ermeina Amar, not Ermeina Etzem. It's Ermein Inyan in the Makar, which has a Shaykhis there. Means the Etzem Gufatak is not Nirgish in the air. You say a Pashta Zach. Is the Etzem reflected in the air? The Etzem Guf is not reflected. Why is the Etzem not reflected? Because the Etzem Be'etzem is beyond reflection. That's in the mashal. So the etzem is really beyond reflection, but it's not limited. It could also be, but the etzem's mode is beyond reflection. In a lakus, you say in atzmos, he's in a certain mode. The Eibush is in a certain mode, a mode of etzem, a mode of gili. He's not limited. So the etzem guf is the gili. The gili is that the etzem chatchila has no hagbala. That's what the gili is, mushish.
So when you're saying kol bat Muslim means it's also it's not it's something else. It's kol.
That's emalin. Yeah. Now, the Lashon he says here, if you look at the end,
Shad is why it's called air. It's called it must, what is it?
Because the etzem is mispashit. Sazam assert air that we're not able to say it's the way it's not musir. He says, what does he say at the end? That means, what does it mean, Moir? Moir, we mean there's a certain union in which they have the mile of being mispashi. There's a mile of mispashtis. What's the mile of mispashtis? It brings out a certain unlimitedness in the market. So his pashtis is a mile. It's found that it's the guf hadover. The guf hadover is not. And this guf hadover is also mispashit. But any inch mahusi u'er v'zeh what's musi chas v'shalom. In Gmazim Gemara Chal Moshe Mizah Mashal Even Teva Meir Yesim Mechuv Mashal Eir Hashemesh. The Hashemesh Kol Mahusu U'er is Behirus. Aval Even Tev Hari Mahusa Even Hu Dover Tev Ifnei Atzmei. Yeah, there's an Indian bestätigt in them that he has Lichtigkeit. Nicht in dem steht the Shemesh. It's all Mahus is the fact that the Shemesh is a Dover Meir. It's Mahus is that it's air. Mashiach Even Tev, Mahus Even Dover Ifnei Atzmei. His Reichkeit bestätigt in them that he has the Indian of Behirus. That's not his Indian. So Kmekin B'chinas Atzmei Shalei Zeu Atzmus Ishu Makol Eir Chas V'Shalom. Nicht in dem steht der Rätsel. The fact that there's Elamis and that the Eibush has mispashet in Elamis means that's not nicht never state the mile from Elokus. It's not a mile legabiyim. Let's say the Indian of Elokus being Mahav Elamis brings out the fact that the Eibush is blikvul. The whole musical blikvul is atzvos is nivdal from the musical blikvul. Atzvos brach nivdal legamri. So what does he add here? So b'chinas eresh b'chinas gilead. Ima yesh b'chinas er means inyan is gilui. But it has nothing to do with er chas v'shalom. Any b'chinas yulu the er chas v'shalom. U'mei any b'chinas mitzvah er klal l'klal. Kim b'chinas yichelis levad. That's a single word. That's Dr. Taka. It's not a gather of espashta. It's not a gather of gilui. What does it mean b'chinas yichelis levad? It's that the etzem is yachol. Lamati, you can't say that the etzem himself is yachol lahayr. The etzem himself is always beyond gilu. He could also be mispashet. Here we're saying that the etzem lechatchila is not mukbal to Africa to be a tzir of etzem. So this air is any b'chinas air klal u'klal. It's not even a yuli for the inyan of air. It's not a yuli for the inyan of espashtus. Espashtus is no inyan, but the etzem is not mukbal. It's a different inyan.
So where's the fact that etzem is not movable?
Lechatchila the etzem is not mukbal. If the etzem is inyan of etzem, So where does this pashtus come from? There's an Indian in this pashtus. So if Atzmus was in a certain form of being, very, very chveis, built in Mitzias Nimtza, how is he mispashet? Mispashet is not an Indian legabe. The Torah says, "Lachatchila the etzem is yochel." He's not mugdar. He's amitas habligvul. So Gili doesn't have to be an Indian in order for him to be mizgala. Is the child to say the Eibush is limited kaviyachol? He's mugbal. Avad the Eibush is yochel lahir. So, but what does it mean? What does it mean yochel lahir? It means the etzem is yochel. So the Indian, so Zeh Indian Shmei Lifnei Tzimtzum, Hainu Mashi B'Yichol Toy lahir. That's what he's saying here. That's the uftu. Shmei Lifnei Tzimtzum was B'Yicheles Ha'atzmos lahir. It's a whole different type of hair. The early way to Nergesh Lachar Tzimtzum is that there's an etzem, which is beyond Gilui, and he's also Meir in Elamis. He's also Begili in Elamis. But that's L'chatchila, which is L'chatchila. It's not a Davran as Chadesh. It's the fact that the etzem is Yochel lahir, is that the etzem is not mugbal in a mode. That Indian is not Nergesh and Seder Shlashalis. That Atzmus is not mugdar in a certain mode. That's a different Indian. That's the early way that's different at Tzimtzum. So then the Indian Ha'ein Sof is Begili.
Tzimtzum is the Ersh B'Nergesh.
Yeah, we'll have to see the Pratei Advarim. The emes is that the Ersh Lachar at Tzimtzum is really this emes of that the is never from the fact that Atzmas is Bichot Lahir. That's reflected in the Ersh Lachar at Tzimtzum. I'll come from that. But I'm saying Abay Pashas Advarim. What's the Ersh Lachar? There's a Lakus way Lakus is beyond Gili, and the Lakus is Nispashet. And what's Nergesh in Nispashet is Nispashet. This is in which is higher than Tfisa. Is that L'chatchila etzem is not in a certain mode. That's beyond B'chlal Musagim. That's what he says here. So what's the answer? So what's mean there? Saying, the fact that the Eibush there is not mugbal. Okay, it doesn't understand. But the fact that if the Eibush there wants, let's say, he doesn't have to. He's bichoti lahir. That's something that's in Hachodesh. That's the Eibush is not mugbal. If the Eibush there wants, bichoti lahir. Huh? What do you mean Tzimtzum?
It's nothing.
B'chol Taylor, we're saying that the etzem is not mugdar. The Eibush is kill Yochel. The etzem is not mugdar in anything. So he's not. So there's the whole musig of etzem is not. He's not mugdar in that gather of etzem b'fnei Tzimtzum. But not that there's a musig of outside of etzem. The that's Nigger Sheder Shashlis is there's an etzem which is beyond this pashtus, and he's also mispashet. And that's it. There's one etzem, and that etzem l'chatchil is bichot ilahir. So I'm saying is l'achar etzem. If you're dealing with that the way the way it's Nigger is that there's an etzem. And then there's a davar mispashet, there's this spashtus, and there's etzem. The way it's nergesh lachar etzem, there's elamis, and the is mispashet to meir and elamis. So what Indian does that possess? That's the musik of spashtus. That's expressed in that which is neveah from the hedrag bala of the market. That a spashtus is an Indian. So the Indian of shtilas kol hatayrin, that's has nothing to do with the spashtus. So that type of is not a keli for that. The Eirshel Lifnei there is Nergesh that the fact that there's an Indian of Gilui is not because Gilui is an Indian, because the etzem is not mugdar melchatchila. So what's this got? Because the etzem is bichol tilahoyer. So all the Inyana etzem are nisgadat.
Which is why the real level of art is only the Chutmei.
The Indian of Eir that's saying stuff. Or maybe you could see the. Okay. I said last time it's Yivarechim, yeah? But we didn't look at it. But it's nicht nachgeguckt. Was the last time? Because I remember that he has a stark ACS over there. Sagst du nicht dort an, the ganze building? Huh? No, there's no Kahas area on the shelf. If they have it, it's Kedait for already. Besides Chelik Dalit. Oh, yeah, they don't have it in Dalit. Yeah. Huh? Du willst wissen, es lernt Nigla. Da war Baruch Zass, huh?
What was the raya? Hemshech saying? That's the Hachodesh.
No, you just there is bringing the dogma of Era Kol, that you see the in of Era Kol B'mar. The Alter says in Tanya Sheikh D'Amuna. That's in of Era Kol B'mar.
So he's saying
The etzem in of Era Kol B'mar. That he brings in Era Shemesh. Era Kol. But it's going to be hard for me to find.
Which Sefer Archim?
It's Dalit, but the truth is that I don't remember exactly where it is. Not sure if it's in, exactly which miloim it is. Kabin Shabbai Mistama. Era Kol Batzmusi. Where's the Erech of Era Kol Batzmusi? Very good. We'll find it. Okay. I can't use this. This is not going to work for me. Okay, it's again. Bringing them safer and we'll find it. That was just a nice piece of it. No, he just brings out this word that Lamata, the air, only begins where there's an asmag for the musik of his pashtus. Because the etzem mitzad atzmi is an in atzmi. And there's two separate modes. So the fact that the etzem is also mispashit, where does that come from? Because there's a certain Indian in his pashtus.
And then the simsmakim comes from symptoms.
No, I'm saying in the mashal. If the avana would be like an alakus also, the etzem alakus is an etzem. But mitzad, the fact that it's not mugbal, is there echet mispashit? Means this pashas is a tnu and a sefus, is a tnu and bechut. But etzem there's an etzem is there's something the way it exists in a way of a mucker, which that's not in a way of a spashit. That's not atzem the way. And then there's the davar mispashit. There's something being mispashit. Why would an Indian be mispashit in lamata? Because his pashas brings out something, expresses something. So his pashas will only express that element of the mucker which has a shaykhs his pashas. But then it could be the mucker which the guy that his pashas is not an Indian, or the fact that the mucker is what the mucker is in itself, that has no shaykhs his pashas. Mashigan in the nimshal, the etzem chatchil is not mugbal. It's not that there's a mode of etzem and his pashas. Who said that he's in such a mode and therefore he has to come to a different mode? The chatchil is not mugbal, and that's the way it is the madness that mitzvah advekus means. The whole Metzias is the bleak vol of the mar, the bleak vol of the etzem. It's lamata. There's no real dvekus at the end of the day because the is not an evea from the mucker itself. It's the mucker itself doesn't bring It's because the gabi the mucker his pashtus is an Indian. So it's not the has an independent Indian, so to speak. There's the etzem Indian of what the mucker is, the nefesh, and then there's the fact that the nefesh contains within itself also this umayla being mispashit. It's not one Indian. Mashinkin in the nimshol lechatchila the whole hagdara there's an etzem which is in one mode of being, and a mucker is an eifin of etzem, and all these hagdaras don't exist. There's no hagdara in vaspara eifin of the kusis. So lechatchila the etzem is yachal lahar. The etzem which is even though he has no shaykhs to is not an Indian legabim. That etzem is yachal lahar. So in that eifin, all the inyanim of atzmos are begilu. We're dealing with this Inyan. What do you mean yechelis not yechelis lahar?
It says
that's what we're saying that Davish could do. Davish just call yachal something else. Davish could be mahave, but that doesn't mean that he's a savos. He could create. He was saying something else. What's the idea of What's the idea of being Meir? The idea of being Meir is the unlimitedness of the Meir. But by the Ebesher, this Inyan is an Eifin of Yechelis. This Inyan of Blik Vo, the way it is Lamaila is that the Chatchila is not, he has the ultimate Inyan of which is that Chatchila, what's the Inyan of that the Makkah is not limited to be an Eifin of Etzim, it can also be Mispashin. The Ebesher has it in the ultimate way. That the Chatchila the Etzim is not Mugbal in the Tzir of Etzim. So, is also an Eifin of Yechelis.
Why is that the R last double?
Lamata.
Yeah.
Well, because lamata, the lamata, a mucker is not in a way of espashtus originally. The original mode, the way a mucker exists, is in a way of etzem. So now the shaila is, why is he also mispashtus? Why is he also meir nazulas? Because it's an Indian. If it wouldn't be an Indian at all, so then he would be in a mucker way. The mucker is not to begin with a mispashtus. The mucker is a mucker begins in a way that he's beyond expression, deeper than expression. So why is he also expressing himself? Because there's a certain quality in expressing yourself. So then, the gili only contains that element in the makir that legabe that is the quality in expression.
This is not with the nefesh or even
But in Evrayim Bechlal,
with Shemesh.
Hashem is even more like that. Hashem is Bechlal. It's ma'ila to be mispashit. In the Hashem, the fact that it's mispashit is not the ma'ila Hashem. It's the Eibisher at the reingestellte in of gili. It's not the ma'ila Hashem altogether.
He's saying, but in the nefesh, that is more than Shemesh, isn't that?
The nevesh is taka not mukbal. Has the ma'ila. The nevesh is a bal ma'ila. It's not the ultimate bligvul. Can't say the shemesh is not mukbal. The shemesh is not mukbal. The shemesh to begin with is an etzem, but it's an etzem which has no chesrenis, or it's kulei ma'ila. So whatever is neget the shleimas etzem it possesses. It's a ma'ila in the etzem to also be mispashit. But if it wouldn't be any of mispashit, then it would be l'chatchil in a mode of etzem, not in a mode of mispashit. L'mayla the agdora there's an etzem which has to be mispashit doesn't exist. That's the pshat b'yichol toy of the etzem l'hoyer. Means lamata the mashal the etzem b'yichol toy the etzem is not it can't be meir. The etzem is beyond gili. The etzem guf is beyond gili. He could also be gili. There can also be gili from the etzem. The etzem guf cannot be meir. There can also be gili from the etzem. L'mayla the etzem b'yichol toy l'hoyer taka. Yeah, this needs a little beer.
The fact would be higher than spashas. The fact would be the spashas is shot.
Yeah.
What's like an etzem? The sun's an etzem? Is it?
There's Era Kol Ba'amar, but the Era Kol Ba'amar, that's something else. Yeah, this Shemesh, the Behirus, I'm saying the pale light is not only in a way of etzem, it's also misfashit. It's also misfashit. But it's also felt, let's say. Since this Indian is not limited to be in this form, it could also be mispashit. It could also be nisgala. But and the Behirus the way it is in the Makar. So where does the in of Espashas begin? Where does the Espashas begin? The Espashas begins in the Etzem HaShemesh. But it's always two separate inyanim. It's always there's the idea of light itself, and there's in what form it could be, in what mode it could be. Mitzad the Etzem itself will be higher than a mode, let's say, and Mitzad the in of Gid it's also a mode. L'mayla, the idea of beyond form and form doesn't exist in Milchat. It's a different inyan.
Why is this Oracle Batzmusay, Hatzvus Alein, why is it two separate things?
By Mitzvah Inyan, it's not two separate things. That's Zakter. It's Bilvad. He says it here.
It's not two separate things.
That's what he says here. Mashi B'cholti L'hoyer L'havis. B'cholti L'vad. L'cholti L'hoyer.
That's Shmuel.
He says, why is Shmei Nefin Bilvad? Because Yechedes L'vad.
Talking about Shmuel still.
What does it mean? The fact that it's being mispashit.
So we call it Shmei because
No, we're gonna see later.
It's the mucker of what after Simpson what's going to be Taka Air. So
But then später, the Pratim you say, but this Inyan we're going to see later. This Inyan that the Etzem is not Mugdar, the way of Etzem, that's he says later that's Kadim Kad Musar. We're going to see later.
It still says it's two inyanim which are talking about.
One second. He said, "V'leya shum davar zulas atzems, kima shebi yicholti loyer." He says later. We'll see later. We'll have to see the. I just was trying to touch up this verse. There's Edim Chines Mitzias Klal Uklal. Kim Chines Yichedes Levad. Given difference in the Prat, we'll see in the Lashon HaMaimer. These are that are hard to. Yeah, we started it after next kata. No, Rabbi Slali. I want to dine Sarchlamed al Yidush. Kam Nifnet since we have Chines Gilear. So Lefizeh, according to what he's saying, it's not a getter of Gilui. There's no in of Hispashtus. Hispashtus as a musig of Gilui. Versus an Inni, the way it is Be'etzem, that it's, according to what he finishes off now, Lifnat Sinsum, it's only Etzem. Yeah, we know what it means, Hispashtus versus Etzem. But where is this Hispashtus that comes from the fact that there's no Lechatchilik Darim of Etzem and Gilui? Ein of Yechelis. It's Hecher from Mitzias Legamri. But Yiduash Gam Lifnat Sinsum Heipchinas Gilui is a getter of Gilui. Not only Atzmos, it's a getter of Gilui, in of Hispashtus, with the Gedarim of Hispashtus, the Gedarim of Gilui. Dem Leikin Ma'il Natzimsu Shaheba Erva Gilui, but Atzmos Chas Hashem. Came Hecher Chlem, Gam Lifnat Sinsum Heipchinas Gilui. Shkasa Betzchaim for the term Shnet Eli in Pashut Malik Lamtzir is in of and it was Nergash the Pshitas of Elikos, so which is Pashut from Tzir. And it was a Malik Lamtzis, means there's a musig of the Pshitas Elikos, which was Meir, and it was Nirgash, it was Mispashet B'Kol Makim. In fact, Ebish is beyond Tzir. And that was Meir and Nirgash B'Kol Lamtzis. Which all the Bertzenia Pashut, Tzimtzim Besatzmi. Hari Hai Pchinas Ergam Lifnat Tzimtzim. What he's saying before Yecholti Lahoyer, it's not a gather of Pshitas, which is being Meir. It's a different Indian. It's Atzmos is Bicholte. It's Herzach Atzmos. I don't know exactly what it's not in of Gili versus Etzem. It's a whole different Indian. Here he says in Eitzchaim, there was the Pshitas, there was an air Pashut, that was the Malak Lamtzis. Oh. Achinin hu the be'emes be'erin sov gam hu b'chinas any murchach has a shalom ba'gilui. Means even though there was mamish, he's not. We'll have to see. He's not even though. It means even though lifnat simtzum. Tulna we learned that what's the pshat any murchach has a shalom ba'gilui that b'chelas ha'etzem not to be meir. He's beyond gilui. He's saying even if there's an lifnat simtzum there was meir mamish. Even though there's meir there's Meir Eir Mamash still, he's not Muchach that there should be, he can be in of Tzimtzum. He's going to explain later. Kamu B'chinas Eir, that means that even though, not like in the Nefesh. In the Nefesh, he says there's a difference in the Nefesh and the Maila. In the Nefesh, Avram Avinu, if he wanted, could be Kavish Rachmam Al Bnei Yechidei, that his Midas Ava should stay in the Etzem, shouldn't be Meir. But if it's Meir, it would be Meir Belev. The Maila, even though the Eir is Naifin of Eir, still he's not mucher that it should be bigili.
How does that start? How does that become able to be an eighth of that?
Good, that's the Keter Maz was saying.
Meaning it's not mucher even after it comes with Pashtas.
Yeah.
But the Nefesh is mucher once it comes with Pashtas.
Yeah. If the air is air, then it's Meir. If the Etzem can behalten the Inin air. The Maila, even though he's Meir, and there's air, that doesn't mean that there could be enough tzimtzum. And Lahalim air. Lahalim doesn't mean that there is no air and the air is nichal ba'etzem. Even though the air is Meir, still it's not begili in Ephraim. That you don't have the mat. Same the mat. If the air is Meir, so then the Ephraim are magish there. It's not right to say that the Inin is mispashit. The air is mispashit, and Avad became the heart by Avram Avinu. That his midas Avad, his son, was mispashit, but the heart didn't feel it. It was mispashit, then the heart would have felt the rachim, wouldn't be able to shech. Here was nichol ba'etzim. Here we're saying that it was Meir Bigili, and Avad became it's the zulas veisnish davon. It's not Bigili. That is explained later. Oh no, ini bezahu. This because you're saying before that Lifnat Tzimtzum is only Yechelis Lahar. It's not a Metzias of Air. Why? Because there's a Tzimtzum. But now he's saying that even though there was Air Lepayel, he said that's Nishmi Stira. There was Air Lepayel Lifnat Tzimtzum, and that's not a Stira to the fact that that there was a Tzimtzum which is this Almus, that it's not Meir. Because even though there's Air, it's not Meir. That's we'll see later. But before that, he's Maktim. We just said a second ago that Lifnat Tzimtzum is Air Kol Batz Museh, and now we're saying there was Gilir Mamish. Let's get to the reading. Oh no, in Mizahu, the session is where Lil Zav Chos Kabesh Lachat Tzimtzum. The call is B'chinas Air Kol Batz Museh, B'chinas Yechelis Levad. The Kenu Be'emes, Yechelis Atzmus. Shel Gab Yair Lachat Tzimtzum, in B'chinas Air Shel Lifnat Tzimtzum, in B'chinas Metzias Air Klal. Kim B'chinas Yechelis Levad. It's not a gather of Air. It's Yechelis Atzmus. It's the blick full of Etzem. It's the head Ragdar of Atzmus, not a gather of Air, of his pashtus. It's that the Atzmus is not moving. Ach, B'pratis Yesh Ba'er Shel Lifnat Tzimtzum Be'ez Madrigas. Yeah, I mean, B'chlolos, that we'll see later more B'pratis in the Klolos Advarim, but the Nekudas Advarim is that when you speak about an air being kolabim or any davar being kolabim makir, there's really two inyanim. You speak about a davar kolabim makir. You say midas haklolim b'seichel or air kolabim mer. There's one vart is the legabi bittul and pirut, and one vart is legabi the dakos and the aksham of the mitzias. Seichel is a more edler type of kayach than midas is. Midas are more bisrakshus, more bispailos. Seichel is more kar, more galasin, let's say. So Seichel is more of a refined kayach, and not so much the shaykh to chutz than midas is. So midas haklolim b'seichel, first of all, midas haklolim b'seichel are more bottled to the seichel. But also midas haklolim b'seichel, since they're kol and seichel, they're more refined, they're more edel than the way the midas are later believed. Because seichel is in general more of a refined type of being. So that's when you get to era kol b'mar also. The Meir is higher than expression, higher than Gili, higher than Ispashtas. That's the Meir. The Eir and the Mashek and the Eir is already the way the Indian is experienced, the way he's felt, the way he's mispashet. Eir Kol Meir, so he's in a higher Eifin. It's the way the Etzem is Kol Eir. The way in the Mizgaras of Etzem you have Eir. So that's the Eir is in a much more idler way when the Eir is Kol Meir. Much more refined state. In an Etzem state. That's one chilik. There's another, and that chilik, and that's one in it. There's another between a davar akol b'makir and a davar hayetzim in a makir is that a davar akol b'makir has no metzias outside of the fact that it's a prat in the makir. It's a bottle to the makir. It doesn't have its own inyan. Doesn't have its own identity. Era kol b'era which is mispashet b'chol ha'olam has an identity. What's the identity of light? That there's a world that has light right now. The world is filled with light. The Eira Kol B'Mar, that the content of light is not the fact that there's a space that has light. That the Shemesh is a very strong thing. That the Shemesh has miles. It's bottled to the Shemesh. There's two differences between a Davar Hayetzim and a Makar and a Davar Kol B'Makar. Now, from Vanet Kumt Stake, that when you get the Seichel Midas, for example, that when the Midas are Kol B'Seichel, the Midas are more refined. Because Seichel is a refined type of being. And the midas haklolim b'seichel are more ne'edel reif. Now, lepo when midas are nergash believe, they're more distractions, they're more murgish mitziyusim. Where does that come from? The distractions that exist in midas, the aspect of midas, the way they're more bakshamid than seichel. Where does that come? That doesn't come from seichel. That's mitzad midas. That's the Eibush created that the midas believe have an akud of distractions and a hergish mitziyus more than seichel. And seichel is mugbal. Seichel is a edel. Seichel is limited in what type of form of being it is. So when midas are called b'seichel, the midas are also an edel the way seichel is. Mashikin l'mayla, you say that there's a davar a kol a makar l'mayla. It's only the musik of bittul and pirut. When we say that the air is kol atzmus amar and the air is of chinas yechelis, there is a pchiras air that he's going to say later that it's in the also the gabi what type of mitzias it is. It's an etzendik type of mitzias. It's atzmus. We're going to say later, like we were saying till now, that the air is the atzmus is blinkful. But then he adds here that you have air kipshute. There's air hispashtus, a gether hispashtus, not the etzmus head ragdar. There's a union of hispashtus, and that guf is kol batzmus. Since the etzem there's no hagbolis, he's not in a form of being. So Ole Bertzeni, there should be an in of his pashtas, all within him. That in Atzma should be in of his pashtas. That a lukush should come in of his pashtas. And that's kol b'atzma samar. Pshuta is kol b'atzma samar. From when it comes to staka that there's an in a of his pashtas, that's all because mitzad the fact that the Eibush is not mugbul. So if he wants, a lukush is also an of his pashtas. It's not in the pchina, it's the same inyan of Yechelis. Yechelis is that the fact that you have this inyan is not because there's a mucker for this inyan, because this inyan is something, but because the Eibusher is not mugbal. That's Yechelis. So if you say the Eibusher is not mugbal, the etzem, the way it is in Mamash Yechelis Yechelis, that the etzem is yochel lahayr, or that vibald, if the Eibusher wants, it should be his pashas er mamash. So there's this pashas er lifnei etzem. And if for that, he doesn't have to leave his etzem. The etzem, lamata, it's not shaykh to say there should be a spashtus in the etzem. Because the etzem is beyond the spashtus. The etzem is an etzem. Lamaila is there's no, the etzem is not an etzir of etzem. If all they were saying there should be a spashtus, it's for an spashtus. And that's all within him. The etzem of Elkus has no nishtakim gather where it is. If Oliver saying in the Shabbat of his pashtas, so this pashtas, you don't have to leave Atmos for that. Atmos is not mugbal in any tzir to say that he's menaged the Shabbat of his pashtas. But makam etzem there can't be his pashtas. Why can't it be makam etzem his pashtas? If he wants that there should be a lakus and if in his pashtas, is done if in his pashtas. Huh? No, Yechelis says that you don't need to have his pashtas. Yechelis says you don't need his pashtas. The etzem kameshu is already here's the all the should be in of his pashas. He's going to be masber. What I just want what he says here. Zeshin is bar ilze bechos gaber shlach ratzimtzu. In the kos khinis regal batzim khinis khazol. What does it mean with this khinis khazol? The kenu be'emesh gaber lach ratzimtzu khinis b'tzis klau. Khinis levad. That means it's not a mitzvah of Aaron. That's zin. We're dealing all. If Oliver dots in a etzem to be in a of his pashas, will be his pashas too. What I'm saying is, you don't have to be lamata in order to have a spashas. You have to leave that. You have to have a less degree of the mucker. The mucker is not mugbal in any form. So if only we're sending to be in the eifin of his pashtas, does he have to leave his degree in order to be a form of his pashtas? He's not too high for it to be. It's not too high, not too low. Virville. So there's no but it's not. But it's the same level of bitla. It's all the head ragdar of atzmos. Lachar etzitz was not nirgish that it's all the head ragdar of atzmos. It's nirgish that the spasha is an Indian. The spasha is an Indian. Lifnat since there's no Indian. There's only him, and there's whatever he wants. With the way the kavan al yen visa oliver saying. We'll see later. He's going to touch up more pratim. I'm saying a pashta zach, just to bring out this point. You see, Lamashal when they get midas eklulim b'seichel or era kol b'mar. Let's say era kol b'mar. So we're saying there's two differences between the davar hayetzim and hamakar and the davar the way it's called in the makar. One Indian is that the davar hayetzim and hamakar is a mitzias, and another Indian is that the davar hayetzim and hamakar is more morgish. But when the davar is called in the makar, it's not a mitzias outside. It's all a prat in the makar. And the way it's called in the makir, it's more an edel reif. Now the shaila is there a mile for something when it's more murgish, or there's no mile at all? Of course, if I want to be able to, someone wants to be able to look at what's going on in the sefer. So the way it is in the shemesh, it's an edel azach, you're not able to benefit from that. The the way it's murgish and it's mispashet lamata mata, that I'm able to enjoy in the fact that I'm able to see a sefer. There's a certain mile in the way it's murgish. L'mayla, but the etzem hashemesh doesn't contain that mayla. It's too high. It has light in a much stronger degree. So there's a mayla in having light, let's say in a lower degree. But for that mayla, you have to leave the makir. Yeah, the makir, the way it is, the etzem hashemesh, someone cannot read with the light of the shemesh, the way it is in the etzem. Where does that mayla come from? It comes from Takabeh. The Eibusher created the reality is there's something since b'chol ha'olam. It's going to be weaker. There's a mayla, something be weaker. The mile is not shaykh to say that there's a mile, let's say in the the way it is, but there's a mile in the the way it's mispashed. He's going to say later, Lamashal. Let's say the the way it's mispashed. We're nivraim in vel. A nivra ba'olam is only able to be margish to spashas ser. Let's say it's a certain mile in spashas ser that even a mitzias in olam is able to derher it b'vadu. Atzmos is chves era kol ba'mar is vichelis. A nivra can't be margish the air the way it's called in the mar. So a certain mile in the era mispashas. Now, in order for atzmos to be nice to this type of air, you see, no, you have to leave atzmos because when you're within atzmos itself, you can't have such an air which is mesugal to be nergash neilus. Or we shy to say that that's the Eibush is tachas hashlemus. It's blig vo. The Eibush is blig vo. So if any ma'ilevus is narfaran, atzmos is scale everything. So if there's an inyan in his pashtus, so he has to leave the etzem in order to have the inyan of his pashtus. Within the etzem, you have everything. La'acharat since that's not the way things are nergash. It's nergash that they have atzmos, and within him there's everything. Or there's the inyan of his pashtus. It's not nergash. There's an atzmos which is neisa hakel, and therefore there's everything. Because the Eibush is neisa hakel. That's not the way it's nergash la'acharat simtzum. The Eibush takes away the tzimtzum edition. We say also the Eibush le'ikonafeit berecha. So it'll be in his battle. This plastic table it doesn't have to be in his battle. It's going to be made if there's any mile, any virtue of this plastic table. The Eibush is neisa hakel. So it's not outside of atzmos. Within the Eibush there's everything. Any form of being, if it has a quality, he contains it. So if there's any mile in Gilu being in a form of his pashtus, it's b'teicha etzem there's his pashtus also. But that's not a davar hamispashtus that's nirgash that it's michutz la'etzem. That's within the etzem you have his pashtus too. So the gabi la'acharat tzimtzum, or the gabi la'acharat tzimtzum his pashtus is nirgash that's the inyan of his pashtus. There's elimus and there's a lukus being mispashtus. It's not nirgash that it's a prat and atzmos. That is the hedrak daras atzmos. That's la'acharat. So the gabi la'acharat tzimtzum lifnei tzimtzum all p'chnes yechelis. Because lifnei tzimtzum is all within atzmos. You have er. But within atzmos gufa, there's coming down the way he's going to say later. There's the fact that atzmos is kedel in and of his pashtus. Because his pashtus in you have these coming yonim in them. That's hebt on reden. It's in of his pashtus. There's nothing b'schadish outside of the fact that it's a mitzias apirut. That comes from Shema Lekim, with the Sagvura.
It's like no quality.
There's no, not means that in Agili there's no additional quality. There's no additional quality in Agili. It's a mile of Midas Sagvura. Keich HaHelah. It's also Keich HaLeki, Keich HaGvol. But there's no additional mile in Gilui that's in Zgal Acharat Tzimtzum.
And did they use it, no?
Huh?
You're saying like use the light.
The Etzim you have the Lifnei Tzimtzum too.
Don't.
Why don't you? Because they should want an in of Mitzias, something else. It should be in the Sagvol, in the Mitzias. But if you could have in of Bvol, that would be negash that it's all the bleakvul of Etzim, all the hedrak dar of Atzmos. The reason why you have to have a tzimtzum is it should be the hergish of a Mitzias. You're a Mitzias outside of Atzmos. There's a nivra which is margish himself as an Indian, Chesed is an Indian, and Gvur is an Indian. There's not that there's an Etzim which is Nesahaka. There's Chesed is an Indian, Gvur is an Indian. Das, every sphere has its own chshivas. And the Eid is made in that Mitzias. For that Indian, you have to have Eid which is a Mitzias. That he's mispashet and he's nirgish, and Chachmi and Chesed and Gvur, not with, it's all within Atzmos. But with mitzad, not mitzad Indian of Mitzias, the tzimtzum is greater and there should be the hergish that there's an Indian outside of Etzim. There's a certain chshivas, there's an Indian. That's also negate the Kavanah says. Saying that's the truth is that the midas that the Shem Elikim is also kulachat. Saying that's the but Shem Elikim begoli causing of mitzvahs.
So this step number 1 is the chayil, step number 2 is his gil.
Yeah, we'll see. He goes through Pratis now. That brings the Maimer that from not from here but from Maim Beis, the Maimer of the Maimer of Basalagani, Tashlamadal, that brings there that Mitzad Esh Lifnat Tzimtzum, it's able to be Meir now in Elamus, without the Elamus being Nizbata. Inside the Eish Lifnei Tzimtzum, it could be right, the way we are right now, there could be a special say himself. Without the Nivra being Nizbata. Because the Gabi Lifnei Tzimtzum, there's no Agbalas. There isn't even the Agbala that Tzimtzum is Hei Pechayer. Okay, that's different, that's really different in a little bit. I'm going to the state. Water Zeger. It's just. Ach, beprotis, yesh be'er, shelifnei tzimtzum beis madrigas. That's it when I read. Maybe I'll just go through just to see the general cheshbon of the word. It says, "In the Dorim, Hachodesh Hachodesh, Shluchur any move and Me'achas Neim Chinas Hachodesh. Havadim Ata B'Shem Hachodesh. Why is he mechalik at two different Hachodesh? Ata Hachodesh, Shem Hachodesh, Lo Mechal. Al Pirish Ata Hachodesh, Ata Lonei Chaim Moshe Vatzmus. Who Anikra Chinas Atzmus Hamar. That's the answer. She'ein Litchila ve'ein Litichla. Shehu, what's the touch Kodesh over there? Kodesh moved to the Gamri. Gamali is Makar LaMakar Chinas Shashas Dabya. You know, Sheikh's Klal Taylors. She'eni begather almin klal. Yeah, so ain't litchila ve'en litichla. So it's no musik of elemis. The shaykh lemer of afilu b'chinasei mak of the shtashos. Is shaykh the Eibishter is hecher from the shtashos, hecher from Welt. The ganze musik from Welt existiert nicht. So that's nikr kodesh and muvdum mitzadatz. Leish muvdum is a dover. There's no mitzias of no musik of a dover. There's him. Kim kodesh and muvdum mitzadatz. There's only him. There's no. Avo b'chinas shmei shehu b'china nikr erin sof. This galus, who er Meir min Meir, but Meir begoli. See, Atzmus is moved to Mitzadatz, moved to Legamri. What's the er? The er Meir min Meir. Means what does it mean? Er Meir min Meir? That it's nirgash in Mitzias that the Eibusher is moved. Not that he's moved to, he's bimhus moved to Legamri. That it's nirgash in Mitzias that he's moved. It's Meir lepel mamish that he's moved. She'er zeh shugam kim chin einsof mamish. Commissioners barely ill that air is in Amor. But Nikka Gamkin Kodesh. Nikka Gamkin Kodesh. There's so much Kodesh moved to me Stashalas. Guess the Sheikh is the Shashas Machash of Knesset Vigili. Khenesh Sheikh is like Stashalas. Els Kodesh moved to them Bub Knesset Makafale. He's also mortgage. Just see right. Khidub in Ego Shifna Kav. She's open as area in such different since the Michael Kodesh Shashim Kav. Regal see the Shkula Bashva. So before the Kav means before the Tzimtzum there's the area in Saf. Which is makif kol seish lashlos. This area is makif. Why is he makif kulam bashva legabi him? There's no alien attachment because moved man. Umikomikim who beget the b'chinasei. Means when is the shaykh to say atzilus vasiya b'shavet? We're saying that legabi this air he's pashut and was hates this air is pashut. He's in so that the highest that tzir is bata legabi. Only the gabi air is shaykh to say that his ein sof. But stating then that tzir is batal legabihim. That everything's in arechtim. Because it's the way the Havdalah of Holocaust is made in Metzias. So it's made in Metzias. It's nirgash the Eibishter's movement. How is it nirgash Metzias the Eibishter's movement? That the whole Metzias is in arechtim. But legabi the etzim in the Eibishter being moved, there's only him. The musik that everything's in arech, there's no musik of everything. There's him. But when this him, which is moved to legamri, is nirgash in Veld, what's nirgash in Veld? It's Meir b'mtzias. If it's Meir, what's nirgash? That the legabi the elemis are battle. The elemis there's a mitzias of elemis, and they're in this battle. Lechatchila no elemis that can't be nirgash in elemis. Lechatchila no elemis. The air is already we're relating somehow to the mitzias. We're being the mitzias. What's the relation? That the mitzias is battle, but the hergish that there's lechatchila nothing. There's only him. That's beyond mitzias. That's not nirgash in elemis. That's his air. So the air is, in other words, what's the musik of air? The air is that it's the gilead. The spashtus that he was the lashon he says before that he's Meir air v'gilui. That is nirgash. He's Meir air ha-Meir min ha-Meir. He says Amnu yesh b'madrigas k'ma yesh b'ma shekol b'atzmus ha-Meir mamish. I'll just read this line. It says, "Kidu beish b'chinas etzim b'chinas espashas v'akelef netzimtzum. B'chinas etzim merum k'mei shekol b'atzmus ha-Meir mamish. V'ozu b'chinas kodesh k'mei ata kodesh. It's not a Kodesh of Ispashtus. It's a Kodesh of Etzim. Sheina then afilu b'chinas seviv. V'yesh b'chinas Ispashtus u'b'chinas Gili ha'er, and that's already a different meaning. And then there's the way he is of b'chinas Ispashtus. Hakel ba'atzmusi lifnei etzimtzum. V'oz when he's in lifnei Ispashtus, kapon we get the shaychus l'shashim. Chas makal hu b'chinas seviv. B'chinas agadol. B'nishim zor b'chinas kav. You see what he's saying? That's we're going to have to see what's the first thing. Move me that image and somebody's birthday against a club, right? Because Michael Shash is called Meshave. Ah, check what see Agash Meshave Mamish the Gabeers. I'm thinking she is a call by more because Ili Rav Otsum Eid Harbe Yesing Meshu Bobby Gilish, we get the Prince of Market. Is even if that's Simpson Guf. You have the even though the air shall lift net Simpson is Ein Sof Mamish, and the Gabe the air is Akvasia Bashva Mamish, but she is a call by more. It's in the beginning of the club. Because the Hachodesh out of Neir Shmecha, has the similar to Kippurim. Is Mashair Nichel B'Moir. No, let's Lam never class and we get them Alman. Can Shair call B'Moir in we get the Alman club. For who Elin can smear Gal Philippines. We're going to give this Merkel Margot the same lad. Huh?
Even especially the same.
Yeah, Lifnat is Shimkon Gilu is Merkel yes. A Prince of Magic is very precious Neach love in the Hayden. She in the Prince CS can call him Yuchad Mamish Wasas Amor. Because Mishalot Khilas, being who Shmei Echad from them not Echad Shim Khayad Mekhakim at Lishim. Hanik Misher Bkhnas Gili. The ime Yeshu Gam Ken Echad calling him Khazat Sam Shmatzim. Sure Bkhnas Gili Kapon. Umel Bkhnas Achta Shalei Atzmin and Kamat Atzas. Al Mashkos who Shmei Echad, Hanik Bkhnas Shmim Yuchad Mamish Bkhnas Atzim. Fakil Bkhnas Achtas Achas Mamish, one Achtas. But Hanik Sher Kol Bamar, Oz who Shmei Echad. So Shtevis who Shmei Echad. Because I kill Bkhnas Hulovach Leish the Verkal Gam Bkhnas Er. As long as this Matmas Er, this second Bkhnas Er. This Pchina is saying Erev Kol Atzmus Amar Mamish. That's not the regular Etzim Er. That's the way the Er is one with Atzmus. Okay, we'll go over some pratim next time. We'll go weiter in this year. That's till the end of the memory. He goes through these pratim.
Which is Kamei After Chodesh, is the level of Erev Kol Atzmus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that we'll go see. We'll see the memory. Der Besem, was sagt. Gut, wir haben schon gesagt. Wir haben schon gesagt.